Cowboy found a wounded girl in the canyon, unaware she was an Apache chief's daughter in hiding. Dust rose in small clouds from the dry earth as Sam, a lone cowboy, guided his horse along the narrow trail that twisted through the rocky terrain. He had been riding since dawn, checking the cattle that had grazed on the distant mesas, and now, as the afternoon warmth pressed down on him, he felt a familiar satisfaction. Life as a cowboy was hard, but Sam had always preferred the solitude and freedom of the open land over towns and crowds. There was a certain peace in the rhythm of riding, the soft creak of the saddle, and the gentle nudge of his horse's hooves against the uneven ground. Sam had grown up in these parts. The canyons, cliffs, and winding trails were as familiar to him as the back of his hand. He knew where to find water, which paths were safe, and which places were dangerous. Years of traveling alone had taught him to be alert, cautious, and patient. Yet, despite all his experience, nothing could have prepared him for the sound that suddenly reached his ears. It was faint at first, barely more than a whisper carried on the wind. A soft, almost desperate cry coming from somewhere deep in the canyon. Sam slowed his horse, straining to hear. The sound came again, clearer this time, a voice full of pain, trembling, and fear. His heart quickened. He had learned long ago that the desert and canyons were not always kind places. People could get lost, hurt, or fall victim to the elements. Something inside him told him he could not ignore this sound. It was not just curiosity that pulled him forward. It was a sense of duty, of instinct that whispered he needed to help. Carefully, Sam guided his horse down a narrower trail, the rocks sharp and jagged beneath their feet. He moved slowly, eyes scanning every shadow, every crevice where danger might hide. The canyon walls rose steep and sheer on either side, painted in shades of red and ochre by the setting sun. The air was dry, carrying the faint smell of sagebrush and dust. As he descended, the cries became louder, closer, more urgent. Finally, in a small, hidden ravine, he saw her. She was a young girl, lying on the rocky ground, her clothes torn and smeared with dirt and blood. She looked tiny and fragile amidst the vast, harsh landscape of stone and scrub. Her hair was tangled, falling across her face in uneven strands, and her eyes, wide and frightened, seemed to search for anyone who could help her. Sam's heart tightened at the sight. He had seen injuries before, but something about her vulnerability struck a chord deep inside him. He dismounted slowly, speaking in a calm, gentle voice. "Hey there, it's all right. I'm not gonna hurt you." The girl flinched but did not speak. Her lips moved slightly, forming words that did not come out clearly, but Sam could tell she was trying to explain something. He knelt beside her, examining the cuts and bruises on her arms and legs. They were not deep, but they would need care to prevent infection, especially in such a remote place. Sam reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small first aid kit he always carried, a habit he had developed after years of solitary work in the wilderness. He tore a strip of cloth from an old shirt, dampened it in a nearby stream, and carefully cleaned her wounds. The girl winced at the sting of the water on her cuts but stayed still, her eyes never leaving Sam's face. He could feel her fear, her uncertainty. She was clearly not used to trusting strangers, yet there was no other choice if she wanted to survive. Once the wounds were cleaned and bandaged as best as he could, Sam helped her sit up. "Can you walk a little?" he asked gently. The girl nodded faintly, her strength clearly limited. He offered her his hand, and with a small, hesitant effort, she took it. Sam helped her onto the horse, positioning her carefully in front of him. She held onto him tightly, her small hands gripping his coat as if letting go could mean falling into danger. Sam adjusted the saddle to make her more comfortable, though the horse was already beginning to pick its way along the rocky trail. As they rode, Sam stole glances at her face, noting the way her dark eyes scanned the landscape. There was a mixture of fear, alertness, and something else he could not quite name, pride, perhaps, or stubbornness. She did not speak, but her eyes told him a story he could only guess at. She had survived something terrible to end up here alone, and now, by sheer chance, their paths had crossed. Sam felt a responsibility growing within him, a promise to himself to see her through to safety. The canyon was quiet except for the sound of the horse's hooves and the occasional rustle of wind through the rocks. Sam thought about how isolated these canyons were. Few people traveled here, and even fewer could handle the harsh conditions. This girl had been incredibly lucky, or perhaps fate had guided her to him. He could not know for certain, but he did know he could not leave her behind. As the sun dipped lower, the shadows deepened, painting the canyon in shades of red and purple. Sam knew he needed to find a safe place to camp for the night. He guided the horse to a small, sheltered alcove, hidden from view from above, where the ground was flat and relatively soft. He helped the girl down, gently guiding her to sit on a blanket he spread out. She leaned back, exhausted, her head resting against a rock as if even the smallest movement required effort. Sam began to gather small pieces of wood, arranging them to make a modest fire. The girl watched quietly, her eyes wide, but she did not speak. He lit the fire with careful movements, using flint and tinder, and soon a small flame flickered to life, casting warm light across the rocky walls. The warmth of the fire and the glow it brought seemed to ease some of the tension in her shoulders, though her eyes remained alert. Sam offered her some water from his canteen, which she accepted with trembling hands. He could see how thirsty she was, the parched lips and dry throat telling him she had been without proper care for some time. Night fell fully over the canyon, and the stars began to shine brilliantly against the black velvet sky. Sam kept watch, feeling the weight of responsibility and the importance of vigilance. He knew the desert and the canyons could be unforgiving. Predators of all kinds roamed these lands, both animal and human. But in this quiet under the stars, he also felt a sense of purpose he had not known before. He was no longer just a cowboy riding alone. He was a protector, at least for tonight, and perhaps for many nights to come. The girl finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." Sam smiled gently, patting her hand. He could see that her fear had not vanished, but a small spark of trust had begun to take root. In the vastness of the canyon, surrounded by stone and sky, two strangers had found each other by chance. One was a seasoned cowboy, hardened by life on the open range. The other was a young girl, fragile yet resilient, with a story he had yet to uncover. As the fire crackled and the wind whispered through the canyon, Sam knew that this encounter would change both their lives. He did not yet know the full story behind the girl's presence in the canyon, nor the danger that might follow. But he did know one thing for certain: he would not abandon her. In this lonely, unforgiving landscape, they had found a fragile lifeline in each other, and it was enough, for now, to survive the night. The morning sun broke over the canyon, painting the rocks with shades of gold and red. Sam woke early, listening to the quiet rustle of the wind and the distant call of a hawk. The girl was still asleep on the blanket, her small chest rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. Sam felt a mix of relief and curiosity. Who was she really? How had she ended up here, alone and injured in such a dangerous place? He had helped her survive the night, but the questions lingered in his mind like shadows along the canyon walls. Carefully, he moved around the camp, preparing a small breakfast of bread and dried meat from his saddlebag. The smell of the food soon woke the girl. She rubbed her eyes and sat up slowly, wincing as her body protested against the soreness from yesterday's injuries. Sam offered her a piece of bread, which she took silently, her movements cautious and deliberate. Though she still did not speak much, her eyes held a quiet intelligence, a watchfulness that told Sam she was not an ordinary child lost in the wilderness. As they prepared to continue their journey, Sam noticed how alert she remained. Every sound, every shadow made her flinch slightly. He realized she had probably been through frightening experiences before, experiences that had taught her to trust no one easily. He kept his voice soft and calm, telling her what he was doing and where he was taking her. Slowly, she began to follow his instructions without hesitation. She still did not ask questions, but her quiet cooperation felt like a small victory. The trail through the canyon was narrow and winding, and the sun climbed higher, warming the rocks and the dry earth beneath them. Sam guided the horse carefully, aware that any misstep could be dangerous for both of them. As they moved, he began to notice details about the girl that intrigued him. Her eyes were dark and deep, reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Her movements, though slow due to her injuries, were careful and precise, showing a sense of survival instincts that went beyond her age. She seemed to understand the dangers of the land, even if she had been alone in it. Hours passed, and the canyon grew more rugged. Small rock slides and loose stones made the journey slow and difficult. The girl remained silent for most of the time, occasionally glancing around as if expecting someone or something to appear from the shadows. Sam wanted to speak to her to ask questions, but he understood that pressing too hard might frighten her. Instead, he focused on keeping her safe, letting her know through his actions that he could be trusted. As the afternoon wore on, Sam decided to stop at a small stream hidden between the rocks. The sound of running water was refreshing after the dusty ride, and he helped the girl down to the bank. She knelt carefully, cupping her hands to drink the cool, clear water. Sam watched her closely, noticing how she hesitated before taking a sip, almost as if she had been taught to be cautious of strangers offering help. It made him realize that she had been trained to survive, to protect herself, and to distrust people, a skill that had likely kept her alive until now. After drinking, the girl remained by the water's edge, her gaze distant. Sam finally spoke gently, "You don't have to be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you, I just want to help." She looked at him, her dark eyes searching, hesitant but curious. Slowly, she nodded, the smallest sign of trust. Sam smiled faintly, understanding that it would take time for her to open up fully. For now, he was satisfied that she accepted his presence and guidance. They continued through the canyon, moving carefully and slowly. Sam kept talking to her, pointing out landmarks, explaining the safest paths, and describing the wildlife they might encounter. The girl listened quietly, sometimes asking a word or two, but mostly she observed and learned. Her silence was not empty, it was full of caution, intelligence, and awareness. Sam realized she was far from ordinary. She seemed to know more about survival than most adults he had met, and her careful, measured actions hinted at a life shaped by both fear and skill. By late afternoon, the trail led them to a small, hidden valley surrounded by cliffs. Sam thought it would be a good place to rest, and he guided the horse gently to the soft grass near a small cluster of trees. The girl dismounted with his help, her steps cautious but steady. She looked around, her eyes reflecting both awe and calculation. She knew that safety was temporary in the wild, and her instincts told her to remain alert even in this seemingly calm place. Sam respected her awareness, understanding that it was a part of her nature to survive. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, Sam gathered firewood while the girl sat quietly, tending to her own small injuries as best she could. She moved with skill and care, showing knowledge of simple remedies, such as applying clean cloths to scratches and rubbing herbal leaves she found nearby. Sam realized that she must have learned these techniques from someone knowledgeable, perhaps from her family or a teacher. Her actions spoke of a life prepared for hardship, of training and discipline that he admired silently. That night, as they sat near the fire, the girl finally spoke more than a word or two. She told Sam about a journey she had been on, though she carefully avoided revealing her full story. She spoke of dangers, of needing to hide, and of traveling through hostile lands. Sam listened, nodding and offering advice without judgment. He felt a deep respect for her bravery. To be so young and yet so aware of danger, to travel alone in the wilderness and survive injuries, was remarkable. He realized that her silence had been a shield, not a weakness, and that her trust in him was growing with every careful action he took. The firelight reflected in her dark eyes, and Sam could see glimpses of her true spirit, strong, determined, and courageous beyond her years. She had been forced to face the world in a way most children never would, yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. Sam felt a sense of responsibility that went beyond mere duty. Protecting her was no longer just about helping an injured child. It was about standing for someone who had survived more than most could imagine, someone who deserved safety, respect, and hope. As they prepared to sleep under the stars, Sam thought about what lay ahead. The canyon would continue to challenge them, with hidden dangers at every turn. But he also thought about the resilience he saw in the girl beside him. He knew that together, they could face whatever the land threw at them. And though she had not revealed everything about herself, he could sense that her story was far from ordinary. That night, as the wind whispered through the canyon walls and the stars shone brightly above, Sam felt a quiet bond forming between them. Words had been few, but actions had spoken volumes. Trust, however small, had begun to grow. And for the first time in a long while, Sam felt that he was not just a lone cowboy in the wilderness. He was a companion, a protector, and perhaps even a friend to someone extraordinary. In the darkness, he kept watch, knowing that the canyon could be unforgiving. Yet he also felt a spark of hope. The girl had survived this far, and now, with his help, she had a chance to survive even further. And though he did not yet know her full story or the true dangers that might be pursuing her, he knew one thing clearly. He would not let her face them alone. Together, they would continue the journey, navigating both the harshness of the land and the secrets that she carried. By the time dawn crept over the canyon again, the girl had grown more comfortable in Sam's presence. She still spoke little, but her cautious glances toward him were now accompanied by small gestures of trust. Sam felt a quiet satisfaction, understanding that their journey was only beginning, and that the bond forming between them would be the key to their survival in the days to come. The next morning, the canyon was bathed in soft light as the sun rose over the jagged cliffs. Sam woke first, as always, listening to the quiet sounds of the desert waking up. The distant call of a hawk, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional scurry of small animals reminded him how alive the wilderness could be. The girl was still asleep, curled beneath the blanket he had spread out for her. Her chest rose and fell slowly, a picture of fragile strength. Sam felt a surge of responsibility as he watched her. He had to keep her safe, and the challenges ahead would not be easy. After a simple breakfast of bread and dried meat, Sam helped the girl onto the horse. She remained quiet, though she had begun to show signs of growing trust. Her hands rested lightly on the saddle in front of her, and she occasionally looked back at the canyon walls as if scanning for danger. Sam realized that her caution was not just fear, it was experience. She had learned to survive, to anticipate threats, and to move carefully even when exhausted. He respected her instincts and made sure to give her space while still guiding and protecting her. The trail they followed grew narrower and more treacherous as they moved deeper into the canyon. Loose rocks and steep drop-offs demanded Sam's full attention. One misstep could send both him and the horse tumbling into the rocky ravine below. Yet despite the difficulty, the girl remained alert and composed. She observed the terrain, pointing out areas that looked unstable or unsafe. Sam was surprised and impressed. Her knowledge of the land was beyond what he expected from a child traveling alone. Clearly, she had been trained to survive in dangerous conditions. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the canyon walls. Sam led the horse carefully, stopping occasionally to let the girl rest and drink from a small stream or pool. During these breaks, she finally began to speak more, though cautiously. "There are people looking for me," she said quietly. Sam nodded, understanding the warning behind her words. She didn't want to reveal too much, and he respected her discretion. "Then we'll be careful," he replied. "We'll take the safest paths we can." As the day went on, the canyon's challenges increased. A sudden rockslide blocked part of their path, forcing them to navigate through a narrow passage filled with jagged stones. Sam led the horse slowly, ensuring the girl's safety. She stayed quiet, her eyes scanning the rocks as if calculating each step. When they finally emerged from the dangerous passage, Sam felt a mix of relief and admiration. The girl had endured far more than anyone her age should have, and yet she showed remarkable resilience and composure. They stopped for a brief rest in a small, shaded alcove. Sam offered her water and food, which she accepted with a shy nod. He noticed that she had started to relax slightly in his presence, her shoulders less tense and her breathing steadier. He realized that trust was growing between them, a fragile connection formed through shared hardship and quiet understanding. The canyon was still dangerous, but now they faced it together, each relying on the other in different ways. As the afternoon wore on, the sun dipped lower, and Sam began to scout ahead for a safe place to camp. The canyon walls were steep, but he spotted a small plateau with soft grass and a natural shelter formed by overhanging rocks. It was hidden from view from above, making it a safe spot for the night. He guided the horse carefully, helping the girl down once they arrived. She moved with more confidence now, clearly beginning to trust his guidance and judgment. While setting up the campfire, Sam noticed the girl inspecting her surroundings with a quiet intensity. She picked up small stones, examined the vegetation, and even checked the edges of the plateau for hidden dangers. He realized that her caution was not just fear but training. She had been taught to survive, to be aware of every detail in the environment, and to think ahead. Sam admired her, understanding that this combination of intelligence and resilience had kept her alive until now. Once the fire was lit and the warmth spread across the plateau, the girl finally spoke more openly. She told Sam about her journey, carefully leaving out the most dangerous details. She had been traveling alone to avoid detection, moving through hostile territory to stay alive. Sam listened quietly, nodding, offering reassurance without pressing for more than she was willing to share. He realized that building her trust required patience, understanding, and respect for her privacy. Night fell and the canyon grew quiet except for the soft crackle of the fire and the occasional call of distant wildlife. Sam kept watch, knowing that danger could come at any moment, yet he also felt a sense of purpose and connection. The girl had survived so much on her own, and now she had someone to help her navigate the challenges ahead. Their bond was growing, not through words alone, but through shared experience and mutual reliance. During the night, Sam thought about how the girl had survived all this time. Her movements, her instincts, and her caution told him a story of resilience, intelligence, and courage. She was more than just a frightened child. She was someone who had learned to adapt, to overcome, and to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world. He felt honored to be the one guiding her now, sharing in this journey and helping her find a path to safety. The next morning, the girl awoke before Sam. She stretched carefully, her movements slow but deliberate. She did not speak immediately, instead observing the canyon with the same careful attention she had shown since they first met. Sam watched her, noting the small signs of confidence that were beginning to appear. She was learning to trust him, and that trust was becoming a vital tool for their survival. They continued their journey, moving steadily through the canyon. Sam led the way, but the girl's observations were invaluable. She noticed unstable rocks, hidden trails, and signs of wildlife that he might have missed. Her knowledge complemented his experience, and together they navigated the difficult terrain more safely than either could have alone. The canyon tested them constantly, but it also strengthened their connection, each learning from the other and relying on one another's skills. By late afternoon, the trail led them to a small stream running through a narrow valley. Sam helped the girl dismount, and they knelt by the water, drinking and resting. The girl's injuries were healing slowly, but the journey had been taxing. Sam took time to tend to her wounds, cleaning and rebandaging them while she watched quietly. She did not speak much, but the gratitude in her eyes was clear. The small gestures of care and attention were building trust, layer by layer, creating a bond that would be essential in the days ahead. As the sun began to set, Sam found another safe place to camp, hidden behind a natural rock formation that offered shelter from the wind and view of the surrounding canyon. They gathered firewood, and the girl helped, carefully stacking small branches and twigs for the fire. There was a quiet rhythm to their movements, a sense of shared purpose. They had become partners in survival, each contributing their strengths to face the dangers of the canyon together. That night, the girl finally spoke more about herself, though cautiously. She mentioned family and people she had been traveling to find, though she avoided revealing specific details. Sam listened, nodding, understanding that she was still protecting herself by keeping certain truths hidden. He admired her caution and patience, knowing that she had survived this long because of these very traits. The canyon was dangerous, but their growing trust gave them hope that they could continue safely. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the cool night air. Sam kept watch, occasionally glancing at the girl to ensure she was comfortable and safe. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now reflected a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism. She had begun to rely on him, and he had come to respect her resilience and intelligence. Together, they had faced the challenges of the canyon, and together they would continue to navigate the trials yet to come. As they settled to sleep, Sam felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. The journey was far from over, and the canyon would continue to test them with its harsh terrain and hidden dangers. Yet the bond forming between them was strong, built on trust, respect, and shared struggle. The girl had survived incredible challenges, and now she had an ally in the wilderness. Sam knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, learning from each other and relying on each other's strengths to survive. In the darkness, under the star-filled sky, the canyon seemed both dangerous and beautiful. Sam and the girl had survived another day, and their journey continued. The path ahead was uncertain, full of potential risks and obstacles, but also full of hope. Each step forward strengthened their connection and their determination to survive. Together, they were more than a cowboy and a frightened child. They were a team, learning to trust and protect one another in a vast, unforgiving world. The following morning, the canyon was quiet except for the gentle sound of wind moving through the rocks and the distant chirping. Of birds. Sam stirred early, as he always did, checking the trail ahead. The girl was already awake, sitting quietly beside the fire, her gaze focused on the horizon. Sam noticed a change in her demeanor. She was calmer, yet her eyes carried a new intensity, a careful, thoughtful watchfulness that told him something important was about to happen. He had learned to read her expressions over the past days, noticing the smallest shifts in her posture, the flicker in her eyes. He sensed that she was ready to reveal a part of herself she had kept hidden. After a quiet breakfast, Sam helped the girl onto the horse, guiding her carefully along the rocky trail. They moved slowly, the canyon presenting new challenges at every turn. Loose stones and narrow ledges demanded full attention, but Sam felt a growing confidence in their teamwork. The girl had begun to move with him rather than against him, anticipating his instructions and adjusting her balance with care. There was an unspoken rhythm forming between them, a silent understanding that made each step through the canyon safer. By mid-morning, they stopped near a small spring fed by an underground stream. The water was cool and refreshing, and Sam offered it to her first. She drank slowly, her movements deliberate, and then looked up at him. For a long moment she said nothing, her eyes reflecting something deep and serious. Sam waited patiently, sensing that what she was about to say would change the course of their journey. The canyon was vast and silent, and in that quiet the weight of her next words felt even heavier. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but steady. "My name is Nijoni," she said. Sam nodded, encouraging her without speaking, giving her the space she needed to continue. She took a deep breath, her dark eyes meeting his. "I am not just a lost girl. I am the daughter of an Apache chief. My people, my family, they are in danger. I had to leave to stay alive." Sam was taken aback. He had suspected she had a complicated past, but the truth was more than he had imagined. A rush of thoughts ran through his mind. The dangers she might face, the enemies seeking her, and the responsibility he had now accepted in helping her. Yet despite the shock, he kept his calm, understanding that fear or anger would not help. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. "I will help you, I promise." Nijoni's shoulders relaxed slightly, though tension still lingered in her movements. She explained more, though carefully, revealing that rival tribes and hostile settlers had forced her into hiding. She had been traveling alone, moving quickly and quietly to avoid detection, and the injuries Sam had treated were the result of a recent ambush. Her journey had been filled with fear, yet her courage had carried her through. Sam listened intently, realizing that this girl, so young yet so strong, had survived situations that would have overwhelmed many adults. As they continued riding, Sam felt a new sense of urgency. The canyon was still dangerous, but now the stakes were higher. Nijoni's life was more than just about surviving the wilderness. It was about avoiding those who might harm her and ensuring she could return safely to her people. Sam's mind worked quickly, considering the safest paths, the hidden trails, and the places where they could rest without being discovered. He understood that every decision he made from this moment on could affect her life profoundly. Despite the gravity of her revelation, Nijoni began to show a small measure of trust. She pointed out safer routes through the canyon, recognized signs of animals or people nearby, and even suggested small adjustments to their pace. Sam noticed that she was not just a survivor but a strategist. Her upbringing as the daughter of a chief had taught her awareness, intelligence, and caution, qualities that now helped them navigate the canyon more safely. As the day wore on, the sun climbed high and then began to descend, casting long shadows across the canyon walls. Sam guided the horse carefully, taking small detours to avoid loose rocks and dangerous ledges. Nijoni's presence was calm but alert, and Sam could sense that she was thinking ahead, considering what dangers might appear next. He realized that despite her young age, she had developed an extraordinary ability to assess risk and act decisively. It was a skill that had undoubtedly saved her life more than once. By late afternoon, they reached a small plateau that offered shelter and a vantage point over the surrounding canyon. Sam guided the horse down gently and helped Nijoni dismount. She moved with more confidence now, her eyes scanning the rocks and shadows. Sam felt a quiet admiration for her resilience. Here she was, a young girl who had endured fear, injury, and the threat of discovery, yet she carried herself with courage and grace. As they set up a fire for the evening, Nijoni helped gather small branches and twigs. Her movements were careful and precise, revealing a practiced skill in surviving outdoors. Sam noticed that she checked the surrounding area for signs of danger, quietly inspecting the cliffs and nearby rocks. She had learned to be cautious in a world that had demanded constant vigilance, and now that she had shared part of her secret, she seemed more willing to work alongside Sam as a partner rather than simply a protected child. That night, under the wide sky filled with stars, Nijoni shared more of her story. She spoke of her family, her village, and the responsibilities she carried even at her young age. She described the dangers she had faced, though she avoided details that might have been too alarming. Sam listened carefully, offering advice and reassurance without judgment. He felt a growing respect for her intelligence, bravery, and the wisdom she had gained through hardship. The fire crackled as they spoke, casting warm light over their faces. Nijoni's eyes, once filled with fear, now held determination and trust. Sam felt a bond growing between them, strengthened by shared experiences and the acceptance of each other's strengths. He realized that protecting her was no longer just about guiding her through the canyon. It was about understanding her, supporting her, and helping her reclaim a sense of safety that had been stolen from her. As the night deepened, the wind whispered through the canyon, and the stars seemed brighter than ever. Sam kept watch, occasionally glancing at Nijoni to ensure she was comfortable and secure. He reflected on the journey so far, recognizing how much they had both changed. The girl had survived unimaginable challenges, and now she had someone she could trust. Sam, once a lone cowboy, had found a purpose beyond himself, a mission to protect and guide someone truly remarkable. The revelation of Nijoni's identity added new urgency to their journey. Sam knew that they had to move carefully, avoiding trails where they might be seen and finding places to rest that were hidden from view. Every decision mattered, from choosing a route to deciding when to stop for water or food. Yet despite the heightened danger, he also felt a sense of hope. With her knowledge and instincts combined with his experience and skills, they had a real chance to navigate the canyon safely. By dawn the next day, they were on the move again. Nijoni rode with a quiet confidence, scanning the terrain and pointing out safe passages. Sam guided the horse carefully, but he no longer felt that the journey was entirely on his shoulders. They had become a team, each complementing the other's strengths. She was no longer just the girl he had rescued. She was Nijoni, a young leader in her own right and a partner in survival. As the canyon walls rose higher and the trails became narrower, Sam thought about the trust they had built. It had not come easily, but it had come through shared hardship, patience, and understanding. He knew that the coming days would test them even more, with hidden dangers and the possibility of pursuit. Yet he also knew that they were stronger together, their bond giving them courage and resilience in the face of uncertainty. By evening, they reached another sheltered spot, a small hollow where the fire could be protected from the wind. Nijoni helped gather firewood, and they worked together in quiet cooperation. The canyon was still beautiful, even as it remained dangerous, and Sam felt a sense of peace in the small routines of survival. For a moment, they could rest, regain strength, and prepare for the challenges ahead. As they settled for the night, Nijoni looked at Sam with a mixture of gratitude and determination. She had revealed a secret she had guarded for so long, and now she could rely on him fully. Sam, in turn, felt a profound respect for her courage and wisdom. Together, they had faced dangers, navigated difficult terrain, and begun to understand each other in ways that words alone could not express. The stars shone brightly over the canyon, and Sam thought about the journey ahead. He did not yet know all the dangers they would face, but he knew that their bond would guide them. Nijoni had trusted him with her secret, and he had accepted it with care and commitment. In the harsh wilderness, trust was a rare and precious thing, and they had found it in each other. And so, under the starry sky and with the canyon stretching endlessly around them, they rested. The challenges of the world awaited them, but for now they had safety, understanding, and a fragile peace. Together, they were stronger than they had been alone, ready to face whatever trials the canyon might bring. The morning air in the canyon was crisp and cool, carrying the faint scent of wild sage and distant earth. Sam stirred first, as usual, glancing at Nijoni, who was already awake. Her dark eyes were alert, scanning the horizon as if measuring the day ahead. Over the past days, she had grown stronger, both physically and mentally, and her trust in Sam had deepened. The bond between them, formed through shared struggles and quiet understanding, had become a lifeline, giving them both courage and hope in the vast, unforgiving wilderness. After a simple breakfast of bread and dried meat, Sam helped Nijoni onto the horse. They moved with practiced care, the trails of the canyon still narrow and full of potential hazards. Each step required attention, patience, and skill, but they were no longer strangers or cautious acquaintances. They were a team, watching out for each other, anticipating dangers, and relying on each other's strengths. Nijoni's eyes constantly scanned the cliffs and crevices, while Sam guided the horse with the calm precision of someone who had survived the wilderness for years. Hours passed as they navigated the canyon, moving steadily yet cautiously. The sun rose high, casting sharp shadows and painting the rocks in deep reds and golds. Sam noticed how much Nijoni had changed in the short time since he found her. She was more confident in her movements, more decisive in pointing out safe paths and warning him of loose rocks or sudden drops. Her survival instincts were remarkable, honed by necessity and intelligence, and Sam could not help but feel a quiet admiration for the young girl who had endured so much yet remained strong. Midday brought a challenge that tested both of them. A narrow ledge overlooked a steep drop, and the trail ahead was blocked by fallen boulders. Sam dismounted first, leading the horse carefully along the narrow path. Nijoni watched, calculating each step before she moved, gripping his arm lightly for balance. Despite the difficulty and danger, they made it across safely. The sense of relief was tangible, a silent acknowledgement of their growing trust and teamwork. Each obstacle they overcame together strengthened the bond between them, proving that they could face even the harshest challenges of the canyon. By early afternoon, they stopped near a hidden stream to rest and refill their water supply. Nijoni knelt beside the water, cupping her hands and drinking slowly. Sam watched her, noticing how alert she remained even in moments of respite. He realized that her vigilance was not just caution. It was a skill, a way of staying alive in a world that had forced her to be both clever and careful. He respected her for it, knowing that her intelligence and bravery had carried her through unimaginable challenges. As they rested, Nijoni spoke softly, recounting small memories of her home and family without revealing too much. Sam listened attentively, offering gentle words of reassurance. He could sense her longing for safety, for the familiarity of her people, and for the life she had been forced to leave behind. Despite the dangers of the canyon, they both felt a quiet determination. Sam's presence gave her confidence, and her insight and courage inspired him. Together, they could navigate the difficult terrain and find a path to safety. The afternoon journey continued, with the canyon gradually opening into wider valleys and gentler slopes. The trails were still challenging, but the danger seemed less immediate. Sam guided the horse carefully, keeping an eye on Nijoni as she remained attentive to every movement and sound. She pointed out animal tracks and unusual rock formations, showing that she had learned to read the land with the skill of someone much older. Her knowledge was invaluable, helping them avoid hidden dangers and choose the safest routes. As evening approached, Sam spotted a sheltered canyon hollow, partially hidden by boulders and small trees. It would be a perfect place to camp for the night. He guided the horse gently to the soft ground and helped Nijoni dismount. She moved with a confidence that had grown steadily over the past days, her eyes scanning the area for safety. Together, they gathered firewood, working in silence but with clear purpose. The bond between them was now unspoken, built through trust, patience, and shared survival. With the fire crackling, the warmth spread over the rocky hollow, creating a small haven in the vast wilderness. Nijoni moved carefully, tending to her own small injuries and making sure everything was secure. Sam admired her resilience and focus. Though she had endured fear, injury, and the threat of discovery, she carried herself with determination and grace. The firelight reflected in her eyes, and Sam saw not just fear but courage, intelligence, and an inner strength that had guided her through the toughest days. That night, as the canyon grew quiet and shadows stretched long across the rocks, Nijoni finally spoke more freely. She shared parts of her story that she had not yet revealed, explaining the journey she had taken to survive and stay hidden. Sam listened, offering gentle advice and reassurance, understanding the importance of trust in these moments. Her story was remarkable, full of courage, wisdom, and survival skills far beyond her years. Sam felt honored to be part of her journey, to help guide her through the dangers that had pursued her. The firelight flickered on the canyon walls, creating a sense of intimacy and safety. Sam reflected on the days they had shared, realizing how much they had both grown. Nijoni had learned to trust another person, to rely on his guidance without losing her independence. Sam, in turn, had learned patience, empathy, and the power of quiet courage in the face of danger. Their bond had become a lifeline, a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared experiences in the wilderness. The following morning, they prepared to continue their journey. Sam helped Nijoni onto the horse, and they set out with careful attention to every step. The canyon stretched out before them, full of potential hazards and hidden trails. Yet there was also hope and purpose, a quiet confidence in their ability to navigate the challenges ahead. Nijoni's strength, intelligence, and courage complemented Sam's experience and skill, creating a partnership that gave them both confidence in the days to come. As the sun climbed higher, they approached a narrow valley that would eventually lead them toward a safer, more familiar area for Nijoni. Sam kept the horse steady, and Nijoni watched the cliffs and rocks intently. Every movement and sound was a potential sign of danger, and they had learned to interpret them together. Their journey had taught them to rely on each other, and that reliance now felt natural, like an unspoken rhythm that guided every step. By mid-afternoon, they reached a small plateau overlooking a valley below. The view was breathtaking, with wide stretches of green and the distant glimmer of a river. Sam guided the horse carefully, helping Nijoni dismount once they reached stable ground. She looked out over the valley, a mix of relief, wonder, and cautious hope in her eyes. After days of navigating the dangerous canyon, they had reached a point that felt safer, a place where Nijoni could begin to reconnect with her people and find temporary refuge. Sam knew that the journey was not completely over, but he also understood that this milestone was important. Nijoni had survived incredible challenges, and now she had a chance to return to her family and community, at least temporarily. He felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his guidance and protection had helped her reach this point safely. The bond they had formed would remain, even as their paths eventually diverged. As they prepared to camp for the final night in the canyon, Nijoni helped gather firewood and tend to their small fire. The air was filled with the scent of burning wood, the quiet sounds of the canyon, and a sense of accomplishment. They had faced danger, injury, and uncertainty together, and they had emerged stronger and wiser. Nijoni's courage and resilience had inspired Sam, while his experience and protection had given her hope and trust. That night, as the stars shone brightly over the canyon, they reflected on their journey. Nijoni felt gratitude for Sam's guidance, patience, and protection. Sam felt admiration for her courage, intelligence, and determination. Together, they had faced challenges that would have overwhelmed many adults, yet they had survived, grown, and formed a bond that neither would forget. The canyon had tested them, shaped them, and ultimately strengthened the connection between them. The next morning, Sam helped Nijoni onto the horse one final time, guiding her carefully down the trail that would lead her closer to safety. She rode with confidence, her eyes scanning the landscape, alert but calm. Sam followed closely, making sure the path was clear. As they approached the edge of the canyon, where the terrain became gentler and the signs of civilization more visible, they both knew that this part of their journey was ending. When they finally reached a small settlement where Nijoni could find temporary safety with people she trusted, she dismounted carefully. She turned to Sam, her eyes filled with gratitude and respect. "Thank you," she said softly. Sam smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did most of the work," he said. "You survived because you were brave, smart, and careful. I'm proud of you." Nijoni nodded, understanding the truth in his words. Their journey had been more than a struggle for survival. It had been a journey of trust, courage, and friendship. Sam had helped her navigate the dangers of the canyon, but her strength, intelligence, and resilience had made the difference. Together, they had faced the challenges of the wilderness and come out stronger on the other side. As Nijoni disappeared into the settlement, Sam stood watching the canyon, reflecting on the journey. He thought about the bond they had formed, the lessons they had shared, and the courage he had witnessed. The girl he had found wounded in the canyon had grown into a remarkable young leader, and he had been honored to play a part in her story. The canyon remained vast and wild, but he felt a quiet peace knowing that, at least for now, she was safe. And so, the journey ended, not with fanfare, but with quiet triumph. Nijoni had survived, guided by her courage and Sam's protection. Sam had discovered purpose, compassion, and the strength of human connection. In the vast, unforgiving wilderness, they had found trust, friendship, and resilience, lessons that would stay with them forever.